I'm content creator Cori Walmsley, the founder of Aurora Borealis Publishing. I'm dedicated to helping women entrepreneurs make a big impact by turning the next page with tools, tips, and resources that empower and connect the dots through books, publishing, and more. Every episode includes me, along with a featured guest on my globally recognized show, Page Turner Studio with Cori. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Page Turner Studio with Cori. I'm Cori Walmsley, CEO of Aurora Borealis Publishing, author of 9, almost 10 books. My 10th one comes out in November called The Treasures We Seek. I'm very excited about that one, so be sure that you're keeping an eye out on social media for all the info about that launch. Today, we have another amazing guest, as always, Dr. Shellie Hipsky. She happens to be a close friend of mine. We have known each other, we'll just say forever. I met her when I first moved to the Pittsburgh area. So we go way back, and I'm very excited to have her on. We've also worked on a lot of projects together. So she's got, I know she has all kinds of great information to share with you guys about writing, about business, and about sharing your story. So today we're going to talk about how to inspire with your story with global empowerment coach, Dr. Shellie Hipsky. And let me introduce you to her. Dr. Shellie is an award-winning CEO of Inspiring Lives International, the executive director of the Global Sisterhood nonprofit, which helps women and children around the world, and the editor-in-chief of Inspiring Lives magazine. Dr. Shellie is the global empowerment coach who inspires women entrepreneurs and leaders internationally. And yes, she really has been all over the globe, inspiring and helping people everywhere. So welcome, Dr. Shellie. We're going to bring you up from the green room and get started.
Excellent. I'm so delighted to be here with you, Cori.
Hey, thank you for joining me.
Of
Welcome.
course. Of course. I love being in your energy. It's always wonderful. And we always come out of it learning something and growing and being more inspired and empowered. So I
Yeah,
love it.
thank you. I feel exactly the same about you. I love when we get to collaborate on stuff, even if it's just talking about what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I wanted to start out by sharing a little bit about how we go way back.
Oh,
Um,
how far back are you going, Cori?
just a couple years.
Okay.
So I'm sharing a couple shots right now from a show we actually did way back. So these are from a fundraiser that Dr. Shellie actually pulled together for the Homeless Children's Education Fund in Pittsburgh. And this show is called Taste of Broadway. And you can see me with my red hair, and that was a while ago. And then a nice picture of Dr. Shellie shaking her thing and singing, busting out some songs. These were all Broadway show tunes that we did for homeless children's, and we raised a lot of money for them. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about this before we dive into the books.
Yeah, so I've been doing volunteer work since I was 12 years old, and I actually received the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for over 4,000 hours of volunteer service. And one of the things that was really on my heart was to raise money for the Homeless Children's Education Fund, because I was a tenured professor of education at one
Mhm.
point in my life. And I always have gathered these incredible women and performers and people that just wow and entertain together to raise funds for different groups. And this was that particular show that you were in with me, Cori, was when we hit the $100,000 mark of being able to donate that amount of money to the Homeless Children's Education Fund here in Pittsburgh. And they're in over 13 shelters here in the Pittsburgh area. They go in, they bring tutors and computers and resources for the kids to level the playing field. So that was one of the many charities that was, on my heart, very passionate about. And then it all spiraled into the Global Sisterhood, which I've been running as the executive director for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And we are just soaring with our charity partnerships. Of course, HCEF is one of our tried and true charity partnerships that we will always have on our roster of people that we help.
Yeah, I was gonna actually ask about the Global Sisterhood next. So tell me a little bit about what the Global Sisterhood does.
So we inspire and empower the women of the world. We do it through networking, through education, through resources, providing resources. We have everything from a school for entrepreneurship in Tanzania and Africa to Dr. Mina, who is one of our women leaders. She's in Nepal, and she has managed to teach over 87,000 women who were previously illiterate how to read and write. So those types of projects that are going on internationally, from Pakistan to Africa, Afghanistan, China, we've got all these different projects going on globally, internationally. But then we also, here closer to home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we work with things like Treasure House Fashions, and we just brought in the women of Impact and Innovation International. Just came and did their Powerful Women Summit 2 weekends ago. We
Mhm.
threw 5 events, did major fundraising, and then we wrapped it all up by going over to Treasure House Fashions that helps 60 women's charities locally, tens of thousands of women. And we brought like 55 women there, and we helped them become personal shoppers for women who had gone through domestic violence situations. We did
Mhm.
complete head to toe makeovers for the ladies that came in that had gone through these type of scenarios, and they just, they need a self-esteem boost. They need sisters. They need to not feel alone, and that's what the Global Sisterhood does internationally. So it's a beautiful organization. I'm honored to have founded it and to be able to support it. We actually, I have big news about it. Could I just
Oh,
say?
yes, yes.
On December 2nd, we are actually opening our Global Sisterhood headquarters here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We have an office
Oh,
space, beautiful office space, place that we can put on amazing workshops, and they can be, streamed out to all of our different sites internationally, all our different continents, and all our women that they
wow.
really need the learning, and they need the support that we can provide for them now. So it's a beautiful thing to have a hub for people to come together and to support each other and lift each other up.
That is amazing.
So excited.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I'm
That's
like busting at
huge.
the seams. Like this is the first time I've announced it, actually, Cori. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited to tell you that.
Oh, that's so exciting. I am so happy for you, and I'm
Yay!
so
Thank
happy
you.
for all the women and children who will be impacted by this.
Thank you. It's so
Yay.
exciting.
Wow. That is really huge. The Global Sisterhood has definitely continued to grow and grow and step up, and I love this new chapter. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very, very wonderful just to see so many things that have happened over the last decade of it.
Mm.
And you were at the forefront of it all. You were on our board in the beginning. So like thank you. Kudos to you, Cori.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I was on the board. So for those of you who don't know, I was on the board for a while, but my life got so busy that it was sadly one of the things I had to let go. And then the publishing house came and now the show and everything. So I'm glad that I am still able to stay in touch with Shellie though and
You
make
are
sure that
always a
everybody knows
sister.
about the news.
Always a sister. And every woman that's watching this is a sister, a part of the Global Sisterhood. So it doesn't matter if you're sitting on the board or if you are sitting at home in a foreign land from us. You're a part of the Global Sisterhood. So you're always welcome.
Well, I love that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your books real quick before we dive in. Shellie has, is it 13 books,
We're at 15.
4,000,
We're at 15 with our last
15?
one we did together. Yes.
Yes, 15 books. So I've got pictures, I've got books on my desk. I almost have no room for my water because there's so many books on my desk. So these are just some of Dr. Shelley's books. And if you're seeing a theme here, it is really all about empowerment. It's all about lifting women up and helping them. Tell me a little bit about your inspiration for the most recent one, Ball Gowns to Yoga Pants.
Oh yeah, so ball gowns to yoga pants. This I was inspired. The title came to me from my one of my kids. My daughter said to me, Mom, you used to always wear like these power suits to work when you were a professor, and now like I always see you in a ball gown going to a charity event, or you're just like hanging out in your yoga pants making deals on your phone. So it was like
No,
so. Yeah, and women are like that. Like you we like do the Superman thing. We don't change in a phone booth anymore. We sometimes like throw our
Backseat of the car.
jacket on in our car or behind our desk if we're doing Zooms or streaming things. But yeah, we're changing up our looks. We're changing up our the way that we approach businesses, and it's all entrepreneurial secrets for creating your dream business and brand, because I
Yep.
do a lot of branding work with, oh
Mhm.
look, we both have the book. Look
Oh,
at
nice.
that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
inside the book, we have a lot of different secrets and tips, and Dr. Shelley's success secrets are all in here. So if you want to take a peek through that, and one of them is like, it's not just who and what you know, it's who trusts, respects, and relates to you. And I think that, like with us, we've been together so long on this journey that we trust each other, we respect each other, we relate to each other. We're both on that motherhood journey, running our businesses, doing all the things.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think that when you're reaching out to your audience or your readers, you need to establish that bond, whether that be through speaking on a stage or talking in a book or getting in a magazine article, or however you're doing it. You need to find ways to connect with that right audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually leads perfectly into our impactful page turner share. I've learned that relationships with the wrong people and companies can break you, but the right combinations for collaboration can be a win-win that will have you all rising together towards success. Tell me a little bit more about this.
So, you know, throughout my entrepreneurial journey, and I just did a documentary on this journey that I've been on. But throughout it, there's been people that have come into my world, whether it be an ex-husband or whether it be somebody that I'm working with that just is not in alignment with who I am and what I want to bring into the world through my writing, through my charity work, through those type of things. And if you're not in alignment, um, and if you're not putting out your true authentic self to attract in those right people, then it's going to keep bringing you down and down and down. And that's when you're on this um, roller coaster of entrepreneurship, and you're going to feel a lot more dips if you're not with the right people to make that happen. But when you're all moving in that upward slope and helping each other and supporting each other's needs, then you really can make something magical happen. So I've relied on people like you, Cori, to help me go up together.
Yeah, and I think that alignment is really a key word there. So I love that you said that, because we have to have awareness
Yes.
around everything that we're doing, and we have to stop and say, is this aligned? A funny story about that, actually, the other day, no, actually, it was a few weeks ago now, but my daughter, she's so used to hearing this sort of thing that my 8-year-old came in and she held up her toothbrush and she said, "Mommy, this toothbrush isn't aligned anymore." And I'm like, "What's wrong with it?" And she said, "The sticker on here is Ariel, and I'm into Jasmine now." It's just not
It's
aligned.
not on point.
Yeah, not aligned. I'm like, "Well, we'll get you a new sticker, not a new toothbrush."
That's
Yeah.
smart.
So going into Shelley's, being a page turner tip, as I always say, my tagline is inspiration is just a story away. I love that.
Thank you.
When you can tell a great story that illuminates the reader and audience, you will capture their attention and their hearts. And I know you have a lot of experience with this, with your books, with telling stories on stage, with telling stories in the magazine too. So can you elaborate on this?
Absolutely. I think that storytelling is it's a time honored throughout history practice of connecting and communicating with people. And I think that when you really can tap into those stories that can move a person's heart, move a person to, give, or move a person to reflect, to feel a certain emotion, I think that that can be such a powerful leverage piece for you as a business owner, for you as a reader, as a speaker, so that you can really get that message nailed home to whomever you are trying to attract into your business.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's something that I'm always telling my clients is to make sure that you're finding pieces that will connect. For you, like in ball gowns to yoga pants, how did you go about doing that?
Ooh, I dipped into my past, my storied history. You know, I have so many stories going. I've got 15 books, but I could do like volumes of
Oh,
them,
yeah.
just because I love a good story. I love a good yarn, as they would have said back in the
Yeah.
day. Um, but yeah, I looked at what my outline was, what I was trying to communicate to my audience, what I was trying to teach, and then I always look to stories from my past, stories from my working life, stories from my personal life, and that can be hard. I think that sometimes, particularly if those stories are raw and fresh and new,
Yeah.
sometimes you kind of have to hold on to those for a little while and not necessarily give it all away in XYZ book, or on stages. I think that sometimes you have to be very real, very authentic. But sometimes there are those stories where I'm like, I'm gonna tell this one, and then I like, maybe not yet. Maybe this isn't the time. Maybe this isn't the audience. I actually just had a story that I told on television. It wasn't a live recording, uh, and I went back to I that night. I thought, this is not a story that I want my children to hear.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to ever pull it up on YouTube. It was too raw, it was too emotional, and it was just too personal. And I went to the executive producer of the television show, and he was amazing, absolutely amazing, because he said, "We'll pull it." He said, "Just this chunk, just this part." I said, "Bless you." I mean, I was so relieved that he was willing and able to do that,
Yeah.
because there are some things that you just, and I'm not good at this. I've always struggled with boundaries. You know that, Corey. I like want to tell the world my stories and like hug everybody and love on
Yeah,
everybody and
of course.
let everybody in.
Yeah.
But there are some stories that just have to, you just have to kind of sit on and nurture and see
Yeah.
when is the right time.
Yeah, and I want to call out what you were just saying as something super important for anyone who's working on a book or, thinking about doing interviews, being on stage. Make sure that you feel comfortable with that story. And if you don't, and if you talk about it, be sure you say something because most people are going to understand. But it's very important when you're working on your book, especially to sit down and say, is this something I'm comfortable sharing? Am I ready to share it? Because if it feels horrible in here, you
Yeah.
don't wanna be sharing it yet. It's
Right.
time to pause, maybe write it out and put it aside, but absolutely be sure that you feel comfortable with it because you will just feel all kinds of things if you go
Yes.
ahead and put it out, and then people are reading it and they're asking you about it. You have to be at a healed place,
Yes.
and ready to talk about it. So,
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
thank you for sharing that. That was really important.
Thank you.
So I wanted to share the turn the page with Cori tip. You don't need to impact everyone in the world. Focus on that first person and then look bigger. And I know that this is something that you started out. I know from the very beginning, you were like, I'm going to impact big, but you didn't say, I'm going to impact every person in the world. You said, I'm going to do this chunk and then do this chunk. Tell me about a little bit more about that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess I always knew in the back of my mind that eventually I would have this like global impact.
Yeah.
And I was told that by one of my angels in heaven, now Clarel. Um, I remember when we were writing this book, and this was the first one that you
Okay.
edited for me, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Planet. And
I was
Clarel's in this
thinking,
book.
I was thinking she was this one. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, she was in this one. And we had written the book, her chapter, it had not come out yet, and she was basically on her deathbed. And she was on the phone with me, and I was trying to keep her company, and she had tubes up her nose, and she was, I kept saying, like I wanted to talk about things that she loved. I wanted to talk about sunflowers and cheeseburgers and things like that. And she was like,
Yeah.
no, Shellie, stop. And I was like, okay. And she said, I need you to brace yourself. And I was like, what are you talking about, Carl? She said, I need you to brace yourself. You have no idea how much impact this is going to have on the women of the world, what you're doing here. And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't know at that time that it truly would have such a global impact that it's having now, particularly with the Global Sisterhood and all this movement that has been created. But she kind of foresaw that happening in the future, and what a blessing that she could see that with this little step of me starting to move from my Pearson textbooks and education as a professor to the inspirational vein and stories of women. And now I've interviewed over 1,000 women.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how it can start with something small. It can start with a small idea, and then it can get bigger and bigger and bigger and grow and grow.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I had forgotten the Clarel story. That's just so beautiful.
It is. It warms my heart every time I think about. And I feel like she is so just up in heaven, just like woohoo, and all this is happening. She's definitely going to be at the grand opening of the headquarters, no doubt.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. I love
Thank you.
that. So I wanted to share the make an impact with Cori tip. Every story is different and every story needs to be told. And what inspired this one was I have a lot of people who will call me or they'll message me and they'll say, hey, I've got this story, but it's really similar to a lot of other stories out there. So I don't know if I should really tell it. And I find myself telling them the same thing. So I think you know where I'm going with this. So I'm going to let you take over and just talk.
Whoa. That's like saying, there's other charities out there that help women, so why start a charity?
Right.
Or, there's there's Diet Pepsi, so why do you need Diet Coke? Like there's so many iterations of um, one thing, and sometimes it can get even bigger and better. So why not put yours out there? You're going to have a unique spin on it because you're uniquely you. You're uniquely made. So find out what you bring to the table that X, Y, and Z doesn't by telling your authentic story. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and because we all have our own experiences, like,
Yes,
even though, like, you and I might have a similar story, we have had totally different experiences around it, like,
absolutely.
um, oh my goodness, like, we're both mothers, so but the way you've done it is different from how I've done it. Our children are very different, so we parent them differently, and we have different careers, like, that's gonna impact how we parent too.
Yeah,
So I mean, I'm not flying off to speak at Oxford, for example. So that's gonna be a little bit different. Yet we are both still mothers and we're both still on this journey together, and there are pieces that are going to connect the two of us. So
yeah,
I want to make sure that people understand that even though your story is different from, or even though your story is similar to someone else's, it's also very different as well. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to make an impact. You sharing it is going to attract the people who need to hear your story.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I had a couple more questions since we have a few minutes left.
I love this.
Dr. Shelley, how can someone who is so passionate about impacting others choose the right way to share their story? Meaning, like books on stage, uh, interpretation through dance, articles in magazines, or is there a right way?
Well, personally, I do all of those.
Especially the interpretive dance.
Ab- Absolutely.
We're always doing that.
So I opened up the Survivor to Thriver fashion show 2 weeks ago when everybody was in town for the Powerful Women Summit by singing, because I love that is a way that I love to communicate story
Right.
and to draw an audience into me. So I think there's no end to the ways that we can put our message out there. It's just simply finding the one that is the right vehicle to get your car to the right place on the GPS map
Yeah.
to get to where you want to go. So if your audience is reading magazines, you need to get in the magazines. If your audience is reading books, you need to do that. If your audience is listening to audiobooks, you better get your book on audio. Whatever way they are getting their information, if you want to get to them, if you want to have them be your audience, if you want to have them be your clients and your customers down the road, you need to be there, whether that be in Facebook or on a stage in front of
Mhm.
1,000 people. You need to find ways to get there. And there are so many people out there that can help support you in that.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a really good answer to that one.
Thank you.
Because I do get that question sometimes, like, is it better for me to do this or this? But I think you need to, one, look at where the audience is, as you said, and also look at how it's gonna make you feel. If you hate getting on stage and you never ever wanna do it, I'm not gonna say, "Yeah, you really need to be up on the stage." There's no way around it. Get your butt on the stage. Now, you might also change in a couple years and go, that's starting to sound appealing. So I think we need to be open to being flexible with that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Flexibility is key. And it's not
Yeah.
always easy, but it's definitely important.
You're right. Yeah, definitely have to think about it and be open to making changes and, doing what feels right.
Definitely.
So I want to ask you too, what is one tip you would give women to help them feel more comfortable sharing their story? So we talked a little bit about being uncomfortable and identifying, yes, this is not the time to share this. But what if it's one of those like, I just don't feel comfortable sharing my story sort of pieces?
I would say start with the littlest, tiniest audience you can get, and that can be yourself. Very often, if I have to memorize something or if I have to really remember it like line by line, I'm
Mhm.
doing it into the memo on my phone just so that I can get that story out and then I can hear it back and hear if it sounded the way that I wanted it to sound. Or I'm doing
Mm.
it in a mirror in a hotel room and, doing all the inflections and those type of things. And then that audience is the audience of one. That's me. And it's
Mhm.
very often that's the hardest judger that's ever going to be in an audience for you.
Right.
But it's also a safe space because it's just you and you can take it and you can tweak it from there. And then I would say start branching out. I would say magazines are great. I mean, if you want to talk to me about getting an Inspiring Lives magazine that's free at this point with the Global Sisterhood running the magazine, and you could get a portion of your story out there into the world and out to the global sisters everywhere. um, so yeah, I think it's just that you take baby steps. And then sometimes you just have to jump. You just have to take that leap of faith and get in front of an audience. And there's people that are naturally very comfortable in front of an audience. I mean, I have had you dancing and singing and shaking it up so many
Oh, yeah.
years ago on stage, and you just did it like it was part of your daily act, like going to the PTA meeting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like easy peasy for you. Um, so if you're that kind of person, awesome. There's so many stages out there. There's so many places that need your information, and keep that in mind. Like if you're like clutching your information and your facts and your knowledge to your chest, like who does that help? It doesn't even
Yeah.
help you. Like that's not going to help you attract the right people in. And it's not going to help those people that need those golden nuggets that only you have. So spread the good word. Tell your story.
Yes. Thank you for that. I love
Yeah.
that. Spread all the golden nuggets everywhere, and, something that I always love to think, is that, if these things are happening in my world, then isn't it up to me to share them? Because
Yes.
other people need to feel seen and heard. Other people need to feel like they're not alone. So I love that there are people out there like Dr. Shelley who are helping encourage women everywhere to share their story and connect and be authentic and lift each other up. So
Yay.
yeah, that was like the most perfect wrap up of everything we talked.
Love it. Totally was.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for stepping in here today and sharing all your wonderful the news about the Global Sisterhood and about your books and your wisdom about sharing your story. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. You take care, Corey.
Thank you. You too. So I'm going to send Dr. Shelley back to the green room and we will wrap up. Wow. So that was Another amazing episode of Page Turner Studio with Cori. I want to remind you guys to grab a copy of my free guide for connecting with your audience. This is at the link right below me. I'm kind of like sitting on top of it here. It's the Serve with Story guide, and that'll help you be able to write your book in a way that really connects with your audience, because when you're connecting with them, that helps them know, like, and trust you, so they know who to come back to if they need more. So make sure you grab that. And of course, join me for another episode of Page Turner Studio with Cori at 7 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Central, or 10 a.m. Eastern Time if you're like me in Pittsburgh. And I'll be featuring another guest every Wednesday morning. So thank you for joining me, and have a Page Turner day.